We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and seek the truth with FBI whistleblower and common sense extremist Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast. It's Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, and I can take a deep breath, sigh of relief because I will no longer be receiving text messages from candidates for office in Florida because primary day was yesterday. So I get some nice sense of relief for the next few weeks, at least until the general election starts. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, an update on one of the more controversial representatives who lost his bid last night, one Corey Mills. And then we'll also get into some deeper discussions, some more important stuff with my buddy Keith Malinak, who's going to be joining me all of this week. And we're going to talk about some flock cameras. We're going to talk about some artificial intelligence. And if we have time, we'll get to cars that are spontaneously combusting while parked. Government shareholding is equal to fascism. And McDonald's issued a recall on its shrimp burgers because they were laced with antibiotics. True story. So let's get after it. There's my friend, Keith Malinak, host of At the Mic. Your day job is the executive producer over at the Pat Gray program at The Blaze. Thank you again for joining me all this week. We're doing the augmented time, the 07 start, which is normally when you're working at your regular job, but you're off this week doing some construction projects, I guess, on your house, as you were posting online yesterday.
Oh, you do not want to see me with power tools. Let's put it that way, or else I would be doing the show from the ER. But yeah, I climbed up on the roof. About the extent of my expertise is hooking up antennas. So that's all I can do, man. But yeah, it was. You got to start early too, man. It gets 109 is our predicted high temperature today here in Dallas. Please make it stop.
You missed a golden opportunity to just put the Christmas lights up 4 months early.
You know what? You're right. I did. I do like to multitask, and I failed. I could have killed two birds with one stone. My bad.
Well, I've been multitasking for probably the last 2 weeks, I would say, really in depth, because I keep getting these text messages from numbers that I don't recognize that are encouraging me to go out and vote for the primary, which ended yesterday in the land of milk and honey, that is Florida. So I just got sidetracked essentially all day long, texting stop to end over and over and over again. So my thumbs, the carpal tunnel syndrome will die down a little bit, but we don't do a ton of like the horse race politics stuff, but this one is, I think, worth going into a little bit because this is actually my congressional representative.
Oh, really?
His bid yesterday.
Oh, no.
So the Washington Post, because democracy dies in darkness, is all too happy to report that Representative Corey Mills lost his GOP primary after allegations of sexual misconduct. That was among many allegations that the Washington Post didn't actually dig into. But the guy who beat him, his name is Ryan Elijah. He's a former news anchor who I don't know anything about. He beat Mills and two other candidates. Democrats had hoped that Corey Mills would win the primary because they said he was scandal-laden and it might make the red district, which is reliably red, vulnerable in November. Mills faced his allegations of sexual misconduct, domestic abuse, on top of campaign finance violations. And like I said, that is some of the top line accusations against this guy. He might have been running guns over to the Middle East. He had some controversy with his marriage. He married a Muslim woman, a radical imam married him to his wife in Virginia, an unindicted co-conspirator. I forget the name of that mosque in Virginia that Jill Savage, friend of mine, and yours was all over. And there were also some stolen valor accusations, which I've talked about before. It'll never cease to amaze me, people that engage in stolen valor. And look, I know Corey Mills did serve in the armed services. Neither you nor I could say the same thing. But if you do serve and you want to, let's say, elevate the people's impression of what it is that you did, to me, it would make way more sense to say, hey, I was just a grunt. I was out there doing my thing, and I served my time and served the country. And I think most people would be like, oh, you're a hero. They will bequeath upon you with just that sort of nominal brushing over what you did, way more than you probably deserve. And you're fine to do that. But when you go out there and say that, no, I wasn't really just an ambulance driver. In fact, I was a pararescue, Navy SEAL, Green Beret, Army Ranger sniper, where it's kind of easy to verify that you're lying, which is essentially what Corey Mills was caught doing.
Yeah, he is. He's an interesting guy, and you're absolutely right. If you just kept your head down and you served in the armed forces, then people would just say, "Oh, he served. Oh, he's a veteran. He's a hero." But yeah, when you get elaborate, then people start looking into the details to see if they line up with your story, and it's just. I'm sorry that you lost your congressman last night, and I'm sure you're heartbroken, as the rest of the district.
I've met Corey Mills twice. So when he won his first time through 2022, that was during the red trickle that we were sure was going to be
red trickle. Yes, that's what that was.
I was invited to an event that was really in the very early days of being an indefinitely suspended FBI whistleblower, because you're talking November 2022. I'd been summarily walked out of the building like 2 months before. And I was invited to this event. They said, hey, it'll be a really good opportunity for you to network with some of the movers and shakers in the area. My district had just been redrawn because I was actually in the Mike Waltz district, right now the Randy Fine district. So by about like 300, 400 yards, I moved into the Congressional District 7. So I always said that, I never left Congressional District 6. It left me. And I met him and was introduced. I said, hey, hi, Congressman-elect, congratulations. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, I've kicked in doors before and I'm going to go do the same thing. And then walked away. And I thought, oh, I guess he speaks fluent bumper sticker. And
oh my goodness.
And then at another event, he called me out and said that he was going to go and fight for me specifically. And then when I called up his office, they said they really didn't have any interest in aiding whistleblowers because that was Chuck Grassley's turf, and the good senator didn't like his turf being trodden on by others. That's kind of the way things work up in DC. So happy trails to Corey Mills. And I think we can talk about another political person that's outside of Florida who I guess you could say happy trails or duly departed, because I think this is worth going into. There have been some revelations about the late, great neocon war boner who is Lindsey Graham.
Oh, no.
So this is from a website called Gaiety.
I thought when I read this article, Steve, I thought, what a great name for like a gay lifestyle website, man.
It's up there. I have another favorite titled website. It is about, I believe, New York City politics. It's called The Gothamist, which I love, but this is up there. This is, 1A as far as just telling you what they're all about. The headline here: trans escort accuses late Senator Lindsey Graham as Washington's closetocracy of Republicans faces new scrutiny. Excellent headline there from Gaiety. And it goes into this trans escort. So a sex worker who's a dude who feels pretty, but because Gaiety is all down for the LGBTQAI plus #_ rainbow kamikaze fight, they refer to him as a her throughout. So I'll do my best to clean up the grammatical mistakes there because I speak English.
Yeah.
His name is Taylor Snyder, trans woman and former sex worker, come forward detailing an alleged 2015 encounter with the late South Carolina senator. Snyder said that Graham contacted him using a Google Voice number, which is anonymized. Makes sense if you're trying to keep this on the DL. Paid $400 in cash and left after roughly 35 minutes to return to work. It was a nooner, Keith.
Hold up. I'm hung up on. We're never going to get to this article if I keep stopping every time I have a question. I want to know what the going rate is. Like, was that a good, did he have a Groupon? Like what how much do you typically charge if you're a trans sex worker in Washington D.C.? $400 for a half an hour of work? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna you read the story. That'll keep me distracted while I do the math here.
Well, it's a high-powered attorney would probably be looking over that with some
Right.
lustful eyes. But at the same time, and we're just going to detour throughout this entire thing because
No
it's
kidding.
hysterical. But this is something that I have contemplated that it's never made sense to me. Maybe you could noodle this out with me, Keith. How does one become a high-priced escort? Because it's not really an industry where you can work your way up from the bottom. I mean, do you start out with the $5 gals? Because I would think that pathway to success is not really the same as like a professional athlete who starts out in the minor leagues and works their way up and eventually gets that big contract. Like, I don't think that it works that way in this.
Yeah,
sector.
and you can't really lean on an advertising budget either. You
No.
can't pass out flyers in the neighborhood. Just be like, "Hey, I'm new in town, and I'm ready to go." Just real quick, I did the math. If you're making $400 every half hour, so if you're making $800 an hour, and I realized that I doubt the dude's turning tricks 8 times at 9, 12, whatever that is. But that's the equivalent of over 13 million a year. I mean, that's good money if you can get it. But I don't know, man. Steve, I don't know if there's a minor league for whores. I just don't know, man. Sorry.
Well, the actual disturbing part here, even more than the allegations here, 2015, I mean, it's been over a decade since then, is that apparently this Snyder trans escort tried to write a book about his experiences and had an offer for like 50 grand to write a memoir, and then received another call from an anonymized number, and it said to watch your back. So put the spike in that story, which I guess makes sense in some sort of a novel where you have the evil, diabolical politician who wants to keep that stuff down. And we're accepting at face value what this individual who purports to be a member of a different sex than he actually is saying. But I think if you look at the context clues surrounding Lindsey Graham throughout his public persona, a man who came from South Carolina as the senior senator for a number of terms, and couldn't find a damsel, a debutante who might be interested in being a Mrs. Graham. I think that we're on pretty firm footing that there's a lot of smoke there as it relates to
wait,
Lindsey.
really? This story came out of left field for me. What are you talking about? I can't even believe it. Honestly, when we saw this story, the first thing everybody said was, "Yeah, of course. We knew this was happening." And then of course the article gets into more details, and you again go, of course, we know what Lindsay likes. We could just tell. But boy, that phone call that this dude, the trans sex worker got. I mean, that's how Washington works. For those that haven't read the article, he's basically threatened, right? Like, you're not writing anything. And the dude was so terrified that what did he do? He locked his doors. He all sorts. I mean, whatever they said, because I don't remember the article really getting into it, the specifics of the content of the phone call, but it was enough to like make this guy, want to go to church. Basically, it was interesting. So, what a fun world.
And really, Lindsey Graham no longer holds any sort of institutional power. So, is it really worth going into? Do you want it to be smirched to reputation?
Yeah.
Well, that guy wanted to drop a whole bunch of warheads on foreheads in places that we've never heard of. So, I'm not really down with this whole whitewashing of his reputation because he died. But I also think it's worth bringing that up because in this country, allegedly, we do have a series of documents that memorialize the social compact between citizen and government. And we don't have hereditary government here, allegedly. We opted for popular sovereignty, which was really disturbing to me because it seemed almost immediately that his seat, because I guess it belongs to him, not the people of South Carolina.
I hate that, man. That is such a pet peeve of mine. Lindsey Graham's seat.
Immediately bequeathed to his sister, who 15 seconds ago, nobody even knew he had a sister, and yet he had some sort of relationship. It was a paternal one where he raised her, and this whole story that nobody was aware of. And it's a sympathetic story that every politician in the world would have milked for everything that it was worth. And yet it was a total stunner, a total surprise. She was going to be the placeholder to honor Lindsey Graham. Again, his seat, not the people of South Carolina. And she was nominated within 48 hours and was there. And then changed her name. She was Darlene Nordone. And then, no, I'm just going to go with Darlene Graham now. Apologies, I guess, to her husband. I guess his name isn't worth as much as dear old Big Brother's was. And she was a placeholder, though. I mean, come on. It's only for a few months. We're only going to suspend the free market to save the free market. Our mission statement that we can push pause on at any time, like a global economy because of an upper respiratory infection. Like when Google says its mission statement is don't be evil. And they're like, let's just push pause on that for a few months and do a little bit of evil. We'll totally go back. No permanent damage. Darlene Nordone Graham. And then, wouldn't you know, she's a running to take this on full time. So the South Carolina primary happened recently, and it went to a runoff. You've got Ralph Norman, who was a representative from South Carolina, who's made it into the runoff against Darlene Nordone. Where I'm going to honor Mr. Nordone. I'm going to say Darlene Nordone. She was the lead vote getter. So the two of them, though, neither one got over the 50% threshold. They're going to have this runoff. So there was a debate, and they were asking some uber important questions, because if you're a senator, there's only 100 of them in the country. It's a pretty important role. You need to be up to speed. You need to be briefed on what's going on. Maybe know a thing or two about national security. Darlene, however, struggled.
Senator, are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military.
Oh no, I hadn't seen that.
But I do support the military.
Did she realize how cringe and how devastating that answer was? She doesn't even know.
Well, she's not that informed on being a politician, I guess, either, because she would have just filibustered, actually reframed the question in a way, did the Zootopia, where they asked you a question that you don't know the answer to, or perhaps you can't really present a positive answer that's going to spin in your direction. So you just rephrase the question or rephrase a different question that you can then answer and make yourself look like you have a brain cell or two to rub together and filibuster until the time elapses and you get the bell and then they go to your opponent.
Hold up a second. You know what that proves right there? That proves that Darlene and Lindsey never talked politics. Because if they had talked politics for 5 seconds, she could have recalled any conversation where he said, you know what we ought to do? We ought to go and bomb the living hell out of whoever we want to. I mean, that's what we should do. And then she could have regurgitated that and go, well, I don't know. I just know, as my brother Lindsey used to say, we should just bomb the living hell out of anyone we want to. And that would have gotten a better response than that. I don't know what that was. That's devastating. How does Norman not win just based on that answer right there?
And the optics of it as well. I mean, if you happen to be listening and not watching, she has the yellow legal pad, like she's taking notes and she's all disheveled and is writing down things like, these moderators seem to know a thing or two.
Right. I'm looking for mine.
And let me buy time. Can you repeat the question like the spelling bee kids when they're trying to figure out if it's a Latin root or a Greek root to a word?
The rest of the show, man, I'm just going to take notes, whatever Steve says, man, because that's some good stuff. I'm going to steal it for my stuff.
Well, hey, you should take some notes because I want to actually get to some more relative things that I like to talk about. And it's going to rehash a little bit of what I've covered on the AMRAD pod before, but we're doing the collab a little bit here, bringing some At the Mic folks in. So I want to actually spend a heavy portion on today's Wednesday program on some flock camera stuff and some artificial intelligence things, because I think that those are more relevant to our lives. I mean, certainly who's elected senator in South Carolina does have an impact, but if it's somebody who caucuses with the political party and they're named Ralph or they're named Darlene, Is it going to matter too much in the overall scheme of things? Probably not. I do like to see justice. I like to see Corey Mills run out of office, but at the same time, if he committed some sort of domestic abuse or sexual assault, no accountability there, and he's going to ride off into the sunset to some arms dealing, wealth filled existence. Well, I mean, again, not a lot of accountability. I think flock cameras is growing on people's attention, getting onto their radar quite a bit now because it is increasingly intruding onto privacy around the country. So I got a couple of background stories that I covered on last week. I don't know if you happen to catch them, but I want to get your perspective, even if you did catch them, because Washington Post ran this big bombshell, which they're taking credit for, and they're saying that this is the genesis of all the anger. Spoiler, it's not. People knew about flock before, and the Washington Post, though, is happy to take credit. After all, democracy does die in darkness. So the exclusive that they ran focused on this one woman, but she was among others, whose ex-boyfriend was a police chief who was using flock cameras to stalk her. That was the hook of the story, as all of these media organizations like to do. They like to find the one anecdotal to build up the histrionics, the atmosphere. So that was the story they covered here. But then they did introduce a bunch of statistics and notes here that are worth just rehashing. So the headline of this exclusive is how rogue officers turned a nationwide camera network into a tool for stalking. So the authorities so far, up to when this exclusive dropped from the Washington Post a couple weeks ago, had arrested about 50 police officers for abusing flock cameras. Now, flock cameras, there's like 130,000 of them at last count around the country, 6,000 communities. About 15% of cops have this tool at their fingertips. So if there's roughly 1 million law enforcement officers, you're talking about 150,000 cops have access to this. And there were some problems because any sort of time that there's a tool, people who are willing to step outside the guardrails and abuse it, they're going to be a problem. Even before flock was on the radar, it was a tool that was available. We were told as uniformed police officers, I was a patrolman, hey, if you run somebody's name, you run somebody's license plate, you have to have a legitimate law enforcement reason for doing that, an articulable suspicion, reasonable suspicion, probable cause. You can't just say, well, she kind of looks hot. I saw her at Walmart. Let me just take a note of her license plate and find out where she lives. And maybe I could bump into her again. Or even for some reason that you think might be good, like we have a new baby and we need to have a babysitter. Can you run a background check on this babysitter? Well, no, I can't just abuse that tool as a law enforcement officer. There's actually criminality attached to it. You can be fined. You can be sent to prison. Flock is the same reason. So Flock started to panic, per the Washington Post, because the Washington Post had their exclusive, and they made some changes. Now, before the changes were announced, Keith, I'm taking credit for this one. I'm as much as the Washington Post says that it was their exclusive that resulted in Flock changing course, I'm going to take credit because my recommendation is what Flock actually wound up doing, and the Washington Post reported on, and that is, if you want to have accountability and you want to run a search in Flock or a plate or a vehicle, then you should have a case number that your agency, your police department, your sheriff's office, it creates in order to tie all the investigatory actions that you conduct with that case number so that we can ensure that it is a legitimate law enforcement purpose. And that is one of the reforms that was just released last week in this piece in the Washington Post. Flock unveils changes after Post report on police misuse of its network. So we got some case numbers. We have the ability to audit who is using the camera system. We can go back and flag people who are doing things that are suspicious. Hey, maybe this officer, he's supposed to be off on Wednesday, and yet he's running searches on Wednesday. Red flag. Agency, you should take note of that. And then as a sop to the communist left in this country, Flock then said, hey, the network ability of Flock cameras. So from one agency to another, you got the police in one town and the sheriff's office for that county, or the state troopers in Oklahoma and the Texas Rangers in Texas. They would be able to share that information with each other in this giant nationwide network of license plate reading. Well, now Flock is saying you can narrow the scope and say you can only use it for these particular crimes. So we're interested in countering drug trafficking or violent crime. But if you're not interested in immigration enforcement, like you're in California or New York, you can shut it off so ICE can't get access to your system for the purposes of immigration. Those were the reforms that were proposed. Now, I've been talking for too long. Your thoughts so far?
No, because remember, I got my notepad here. I need to take for that's some good stuff. You actually, give me 1 second. That's good. No, okay. Oh boy, there's so much here. There's so much here with this flock nonsense, and I've said this, and I still remain pleasantly surprised that my fellow countrymen actually seem to care. Like my fellow countrymen didn't seem to care when the government put cameras on every block and traffic cameras or you name it. It was until it was in the hands of a private company, whatever it takes to push back on a surveillance state. I'm all for, but that's fine. And I love a great idea. I wrote it down, by the way, your idea on the case number thing. That is great. That polices the police, I guess, but it doesn't police flock. I hate it that I don't know this guy's name, but I mean, there are some bulldogs on the internet that are following all the developments with flock that show up at city council meetings. But this one guy has documented proof through audits of flock's own system that there are employees at flock, high level employees that are logging in for long stretches at a time to look at a preteen girls gym class in Dunwoody, Georgia. Oh my goodness. If it were just like one time, maybe they were just checking. Maybe the connection is maybe we just want to doing a test. We're checking all of our flock camera connections. No, these were repeated logins at times when children were present. I mean, oh gosh, that's a big freaking problem. And what the hell are we doing with these flock cameras inside gymnasiums to begin with? That's what I don't understand. And I want to point out this. I just printed this up right before we went to air. I don't know who Casey Allen is, but this is just a really brief summary of this case. And it says, this might be the best case to ban all ALPR cameras after flock just ruined an innocent Florida woman's life. Cops used one ALPR hit to pin a triple fatal hit and run on 23-year-old Lindsay Isaacs, seized her undamaged black Durango, claimed damage, then arrested her 6 months later after she sued to get it back. She sat in jail for 13 days, facing life in prison. They ignored the maroon paint transfer, the partial plate that didn't match, the airbag that never deployed, and witnesses. They just took the first Durango that flock flagged, and she went through 7 months of hell, finally got the charges dropped. So even if we're subjecting ourselves to a surveillance state, it's obviously a failure of massive proportions as things are right now. Let's get these cameras down, bro. Oh my goodness, I can't take it.
There's a fatal flaw that exists in law enforcement. I imagine exists in multiple industries, but I can really only speak to that. The new tool is portrayed, and eventually a huge portion of people will inevitably come to the conclusion that this tool is what will solve crime. Crime will go to zero if we use this tool. And if we don't use it, then we'll never be able to solve another crime again. And that's just not true. There's ways and evolutions in technology that gives us greater capabilities. As long as we're operating within the confines of the law and the Constitution and our policies, I have no problem with using the latest and greatest technologies. And I remember this is over a decade ago. A lot of cops who were arresting people for driving under the influence were losing at trial. And it wasn't because the person wasn't drunk. It wasn't because they jammed up an innocent person. It was because the lawyers who defended them were really good defense attorneys and would nitpick and find little things and say, well, when you did this test, the blue lights were going in the background and that may have augmented the way that their pupils were dilating. And so that's reasonable doubt and we're going to have an acquittal. And this app came out that documented what the officers were doing And on top of that, it generated, like a chat GPT, the narrative, the report for them, so that an attorney wouldn't be able to tear it up. And I thought, okay, well, as long as we're running the tests that we should somebody's typo or grammatical error in a narrative form for a DUI arrest report result in the case being tossed when it is an actual righteous prosecution against somebody who violated the law? No, I'm all down for that. But that tool doesn't mean that we're never going to have crime again if we don't have it. So you can't fall in love with a tool, which I think if you talk to a lot of cops now, they're saying, what, you're just going to take away the license plate readers from us? How will we ever stop a bank robbery from getting away again? So, well, you used to do it before that. So let's slow your roll a little bit. And the idea that this is a private company is a little bit of a misnomer as well, because Flock is entirely reliant on government funds. So there's not a whole bunch of difference between them and the government when the government steals, taxes from the citizens, and then turns right around and takes that money and spends it on Flock to go do the thing that the government isn't supposed to be doing, which is surveilling Americans. There's not a whole bunch of daylight between those two entities. It's part of that whole private-public partnership, i.e. fascism, okay?
Thank you.
And Flock is hardly content to sit on what they have right now, because in industry, if you're not growing, you're dying. As a business, you're like a tree. The tree has to always grow. If the tree isn't growing, the tree is dying. So Flock has looked for other avenues to expand out, because they want to bring more agencies, more municipalities, more counties and states, eventually the feds, into the umbrella so they can get that sweet, sweet government cash. And I don't hate that for them. I mean, they're a going concern. They're providing a product that, from their perspective, people want, need, and desire. That's the way that capitalism works. So they, in the past, have proposed things that some didn't get off the ground and some did. One of those, and this is reported in 404 Media, and I gave you this before, 404media.co. This is where I go to. This is a left-of-center, privacy-focused, AI-focused, technology-focused website. They might not agree with you or I on some political issues, but they do have really good sourcing. I think they have a bunch of moles inside of Flock.
Oh, nice.
All right. So
let's go.
This headline: Flock pitched a plan to turn Uber and Lyft drivers into roaming surveillance vehicles. They wanted to put dash cams into Uber and Lyft and delivery trucks, garbage trucks, because they would say, well, the garbage truck's going to drive down the street and they could catch code violations. That could be a source of revenue for your local town. And they, according to Flock, it never really got off the ground, but not a whole lot of information beyond that. No guarantee that it won't get off the ground at a future time. And then there was another thing that is still off the ground. Flock tried to back off it a little bit because of the bad PR, but at the same time, the tool exists. And that is the term Flock, we know, is it's the cameras, right? There's another tool. It's called Nexar. Nexar is taking personal information of people and building out a database that ties them to the license plates that the Flock cameras are reading. So there's all this information that's just circulating around the internet. It could be your voting records, your property records. If you get a credit card, your credit companies out there take your data and they sell it. And Flock can just buy that information, which has your address and your name and your banking information, your credit score. And then there was an app that people were using because we don't have parking meters anymore. You got to scan the QR code, right? And use this app to pay for your parking. Well, that has your name and your banking information and your email and your phone number and your vehicle and your license plate.
Dang.
Now we can build out a individual information network, tie it to a license plate, find out who might be in the vehicles. Now, the pushback was that parking meter app got hacked and a lot of that information was circulating around the dark web. And then Flock said, well, we don't acquire dark web information because that would actually incentivize people to hack into other things and might attach some sort of criminality to us, some liability on our point. But the Nexar thing still exists. And that is going to be integrated into law enforcement. So it's not just, hey, we're going to look for this Dodge Challenger. It's, well, who's driving that and who typically is a passenger in that. And then we're having other capabilities out there where they can scan for RF signals and say cell phones that are inside of those vehicles that are tied to that license plate. So we can build out even more and more. And that capability does exist. And it's being afforded to law enforcement to purchase with money that is stolen. I mean, taxed from the American people for their safety.
Sorry, I'm taking note here. Hang on one second here. I'm going to pass along these words of wisdom to Darlene Graham if she's watching. Okay, so seriously, Darlene, lean in. I got some good stuff for you here. That's terrifying. Thomas Jefferson would be so pissed. He would be so pissed to know that flock cameras existed. But I was just thinking, Lindsey Graham famously said, I recall, when it came out that the phone companies were gathering our data for the government, and I remember Lindsey Graham himself saying, "Well, I don't care. I mean, if you ain't doing anything wrong, why do you care?" Well, we need to talk to that dude in the dress. But anyway, I digress. But Miss Darlene, I would mix this in often, and I'm actually telling you this, Steve. I mean, that is so well said. Public-private partnership has to always be followed with that's fascism. I mean, that's literally what it is. But yet we hear that phrase thrown around by our politicians left and right. They wouldn't, some of them, most of them, I think, still wouldn't throw out, "Hey, I love fascism." But boy, they'll say, "Boy, a public-private partnership." That language sounds so much better.
Yeah.
I will say the line about the tree is perfect there. A tree's either growing or it's dying. Am I right? But this is why you need to put me full screen, because I'm going to embarrass you here for a second, Steve friend. Okay, so pen to the top. Don't do this now, but later on when Steve and I are done yapping away here in about 90 minutes, pen to the top of my my X there at Keith Malinak is a conversation I had last week with two law enforcement fellas who have such high integrity and I respect so much. And it's FBI whistleblower Steve Friend, who you're very familiar with, and then also Nebraska trooper Eric Jansen, who these two guys, I got them together for a conversation. And we talked about this stuff. We talked about your right to privacy as an American, and how we're being surveilled all the time. And I talked to them from their perspective, a couple of Constitution-loving guys. And I hope you'll check out our conversation, pinned to the top here at Keith Malinak, because these tools are in the hands of human beings. You can come back now, Steve. But this is just, everyone's flawed. And giving this kind of power and access to human beings is just dangerous. Let's have a crime, and then we'll build out from there. Let's stop going around looking for a situation that we can exploit and putting these cameras in and watching it. That's not America. Watching everything we do 24/7, 365, that is the antithesis of this country.
We can't do pre-crime. It's not possible.
That's right.
Minority Report taught us that.
That's
Philip
right.
K. Dick novel, the Tom Cruise movie, the idea that the people that are floating around in the milk can see a crime happen in the future. That is the stuff of science fiction. Law enforcement exists to investigate, to put the pieces together and met out some sort of justice. Now, we'll never be perfect. We'll never actually be able to interdict the crime from happening. On occasion, you can. I mean, just you happen to get lucky. I was talking to my boys about it the other day. They asked me, "Hey, have you ever seen the crime happen, or are you always there just afterwards?" After all, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And
Whoa.
I thought back and I realized I have seen, witnessed, let's put aside like traffic violations, serious crimes. I have seen 2 burglaries happen in front of me.
Wow.
Where I happen to be driving and doing my patrol responsibilities. And I said, "Holy mackerel, that guy's breaking into that house right now." I have a 15-year law enforcement career. It's not normally a thing that happens.
Uh-huh.
I've had twice, and I consider myself kind of lucky, twice where there was a radio dispatch that went out for the BOLO, the be on the lookout for this white Honda Odyssey van bearing tag XYZ123. And as they said it, I watched a white Honda Odyssey van drive by bearing that tag. Whoa, imagine my luck right now.
Wow.
And that's when it's really fun. But seldom does that happen. You're always there when it's just too late. Let's acknowledge what you're there to do. You're there to piece together what happened. You're there to follow the process, to gather the facts the best that we can. And then whatever the facts they're there for, that is going to justify a prosecution, perhaps a conviction, or maybe an acquittal, maybe a declination, whatever it is. We can't be in the interest, or we can't be in the business of thinking that we can stop crime from happening at all. It's not an achievable goal if you want to live in a free society. Because if you want to stop all bad things from happening, that would require despotism. Tyranny. That's a zero-fail mission. Nobody can ever be the victim of crime again. What's the way that you achieve that? Lock everybody down in their houses. And we still had crime happen. Actually, quite a bit. If you look at the crime rates in 2020, it was pretty bad. All right. Let's do some more Flock, though. Some more updated. Because I got some other ones I want to get to, which are going to be fresh for the AMRAD pod. We're not going to rehash the older ones. You're a guy who likes to experience America. You like to go on road trips and see our national parks. How do you feel about Flock being at Yosemite? Headline, DeFlock says there are cameras in Yosemite, but what are they looking for? Now, I'm a guy who's a facts guy. Like, if there's a justification for it and there's a use for it that is benign and innocent, okay, I'm willing to accept that, even knowing that it might just be so that executives can stare and ogle at 6-year-olds doing cartwheels. This is what gets reported from this local News 13 website. I think it's an ABC affiliate, but there are 6 Flock cameras within Yosemite National Park. Yosemite National Park officials said the cameras are placed in those locations as part of a wider system to control traffic and monitor capacity in the parking lots. They're not designed to capture license plate information, so they're just looking at the physical vehicles. This is per the park officials. The plan by Yosemite National Park is to use the cameras already placed as part of a wider effort to provide better information to park visitors on how long wait times are within the park, something they call a, quote, integrated visitor information system. Rangers also plan to integrate artificial intelligence into the system to give visitors the opportunity to know before they go to the park. Now, that seems to make sense to me. And do they have any actual concrete results? They do, Keith. This is another local news affiliate. This is yourcentralvalley.com. Headline, Yosemite cuts down gridlock traffic by 98%. The Department of the Interior said that the park once saw more than 120 days of traffic gridlock a year. So roughly 1 out of 3 days. If you went to Yosemite, it was a nightmare. This year, there were 2 days. They were both over Memorial Day weekend, which is a peak time to visit. And to top it all off, they said that visiting, that was where I was at. Well, I mean, how many people are actually going to the park? Maybe this is just a huge fall off in people visiting Yosemite. It's not because of the camera system that's there that's informing the people of, hey, we're full right now, or, hey, you can come in. It's good to go. They've actually had an increase in visitorship at Yosemite. They said the visitorship at Yosemite was 12% on the rise. So maybe good. Could that be a good usage of the tool? Again, not saying that the tool in itself is bad, because to say the tool in itself is bad is the same argument that gets made against guns. Guns are bad. Guns kill people.
Oh boy, can I recuse myself from this discussion because I love national parks and I hate traffic? No, I will say this, and I've never really thought too long and hard about this, and I'll come back to the national parks and the cameras. But as you were talking, I was thinking, because you were talking about the wait times and how they're trying to use these tools to avoid gridlock, which is a thing at these national parks, and it can ruin your experience, honestly, if you time it incorrectly. But I was just thinking of the DFW airport, which, if you're not familiar, is the worst place in America. But one of the things I do appreciate about the parking garages there is that they have these little lights, these red and green lights that tell you if there's a parking spot ahead, and if you see a green light, you're, oh, cool, I can go up that way, which doesn't require a flock camera. I mean, it needs a sensor, I guess, to see if there's something occupying that space. But they have, as I'm thinking this through in real time, they have the number of the level. So say level B has 12 spots. But again, you wouldn't need a camera if it's just the sensor. So, okay, good. All right, never mind. I was just trying to figure out if their cameras really figuring out all of this stuff. But no, it's probably just sensors at a parking spot. Okay, cool. Sorry, I was really thinking in real time. How embarrassing. But the cameras being used there at the national parks. Okay, how can you monitor what's going on in a parking lot without reading the license plates? Do you need a camera? Could you just do sensors? Could you do what they're doing at the DFW airport? That doesn't require a camera. That being said, I know a lot of these stops along the way in Yellowstone is what comes to mind. I've never been to Yosemite. These are above ground parking spots. So it's not like you can employ the exact same system, but I'm sure there's a way. Steve, I'm sure there's a way to monitor how full a parking lot is without a camera. There's got to be. I was just able to noodle it out in real time at the DFW airport. I think that we can figure something out where we're not getting, because all we're doing is we're making ourselves so much more comfortable with cameras and having them in our national parks. I mean, that's, I don't know, unless it's an eagle cam. Let's look at this this nesting RIP, that one that died there in California. Unless it's something like that, it's like that. It just seems like a sacred space. Like that's the last place you would want a camera, unless maybe you wanted it trained on the sunrise or the sunset. But beyond that, the next thing you're gonna normalize this, and today it's the parking lots. Tomorrow it's the main drag through the national park, and before you know it, I don't even need to go to the national park because I got cameras all over the place showing me what's inside that place. Nah, I don't like it.
I have three suspicions that just come top of mind to this. And that explanation is a commonsensical one that ordinarily I would accept at face value if I was not really like in the weeds of this, of being super suspicious.
Sure.
6 cameras? That seems not a lot of cameras for Yosemite National Park. That's a fairly massive landmass that I imagine gets a lot of traffic, and they probably have more than 6 parking lots. So that number itself just jumps out to me as, well, wait a minute. If you were really going to be using this for parking reasons, you'd probably need more than 6 cameras. That means that it's part of some sort of other network, which then why aren't you just expanding that network out without having to lean on Flock? Related to that is, in my experience in the federal government doesn't just buy commercially available stuff. They have everything is proprietary. They will, and that's why they're always behind the curve. The joke about technology in the FBI is yesterday's technology tomorrow is the motto of the IT department at the FBI, because it takes them years to develop something that they could just go over to Best Buy and get. You didn't develop your own proprietary camera system, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You're just going to get the commercially available one that just happens to be the thing that's doing all the surveillance out there. And then the last one comes from this 404 Media piece, which the headline is "The National Park Service is using Flock. Rangers are pissed." But there's one little line here, which I think kind of brings it home. The National Park Service also plans to install cameras from Vercada, whose products sometimes have facial detection capabilities. So not just Flock, we're going to go with facial recognition cameras because we're worried about parking spaces at our national park.
Can you go back to that headline though? Because what that subtext said was exactly the story I had of the young lady in Florida who got misidentified by a Flock camera and had 7 months of hell, including 13 days in jail, because the Flock camera just said, "Oh, look, there's a white Durango." But look at that quote: "I fear for the day when a visitor's national park experience is interrupted by being pulled over and held at gunpoint because a license plate reader misread their plate." Yeah. I just don't like it. I mean, the less cameras, the better. And that's why I was grateful that Texas got rid of the whole red light camera thing. mostly because I wasn't able to face my accuser in court.
Yeah.
I was a repeat offender.
Well,
Anyway,
it's just a revenue generation.
it is a revenue generator, yeah. But I did appreciate that they made those illegal within the last few years. But there's still cameras everywhere. And one of the things that I like, because I get to go on a little sabbatical every year, and this year I went east, which you would think is the opposite of a sabbatical, but the country's so beautiful. There's so much to see. You stay off the main roads, et cetera, et cetera. But usually I go west. I spend a lot of time up in the Colorado mountains. And one of the things that I so appreciate about the Rocky Mountains and mountains in general is just it's so isolated. It's so beautiful. It's isolated. It's quiet. Can I please have some? There are places where I don't get a cell signal, and I'm actually in a celebratory mood, unless I'm doing a fantasy football draft, in which case I have to come down the valley and find a hotel. It's a long story. But anyhow, I look for these places. I use technology to find the places where there's no technology, and they're going to take these away. You're going to intrude on these wild spaces. Screw you. No, thank you.
I share your sentiment. I mean, I used to work on the Indian reservations where there was not a lot of cell reception, and it was awesome. I mean, it used to just basically like, hey, I'm signing off. I'm not reachable right now. And you would just know it. And for a time, actually, it was just a personal experience. I had the flip phone because I had a smartphone for work. And I thought, well, I'm not going to pay for another smartphone. I don't need it. Just flip phone in case of an emergency. And I remember the first time I drove on an Indian reservation and my phone alerted and I looked at the flip phone. I guess I'm admitting to looking down at my phone while I was driving, but I was law enforcement, so exemption. And it said, "You are now leaving the United States of America. Do you want to accept roaming charges?" And I just always kept that with me. It was like leaving the tech behind. The reprieve was there for however many hours I needed to be out there until I get back, and all the messages would flood in. Like I had it locked up in some sort of a skiff.
Faraday cage.
Yeah. All right. So there's some righteous indignation. I think we both expressed it about the flock cameras, and I've got a couple pieces that I want to just kind of summarize it here and move on to something else. But I have a video, and then we'll talk about some of the vandalism that is going on with these flock cameras. This video, it's a long one. I'll actually put the link into the show notes, and it's worth watching because it is a town council, I think, in which an executive from Flock is being interrogated by one of the representatives. And I think it's done really well as far as asking the questions, and the guy is really smarmy with his responses. He comes off looking badly, but the viral clip happens to be at the end, and it winds up kind of flipping the script on the representative because he gets a little bit angry and probably crosses a line, but it's still just worth giving this one a play.
One of our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, once famously said that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And I actually have a problem with this resolution because I think it needs to be amended. It's too open-ended. It says that we shall not renew it until such concerns have been addressed, as laid out by Gary Stidham and written in the resolution. And I have some concerns with what Gary and what Mark are talking about. I don't think we need to renew this at all. I don't think the people of Sullivan County want this. I believe that Flock right now is one of the most hated companies in America. They are one of the most corrupt companies in America. And quite frankly, sir, I don't think we can make America great again without hanging your CEO publicly for treason. Your company is an enemy of the American people.
We're not going to.
All right. We're not going to threaten violence. Heated rhetoric, that's completely within the First Amendment. It wasn't saying that I'm going to hang your CEO. This is an unfortunate thing that this guy actually wound up doing because that's what's going to get the attention. Whereas he was asking the executive like 2 minutes before that, hey, do you surveil Americans? And the executive was like, well, no, we don't surveil them. We just watch them.
We we monitor them. We don't survey. Yeah. You're right though. I mean, you got great points on your side. Don't blow it up at the end because that's the only thing that people are seeing is the hanging of the CEO comment.
And similarly, the vandals that are going out there and destroying the license plate cameras. I get it. I really do. I wouldn't encourage people to go and break the law because you're going to face some serious consequences. But I guess some of the fellow citizens are coming to their aid here. So this is from the Washington Post. Headline: Vandals are destroying license plate cameras as anger over surveillance rises. How-to videos have spread online that demonstrate how to disable the cameras from collecting footage using wire cutters and heavy gloves. People from an array of backgrounds, including college students, computer engineers, an Air Force engineer, have been accused of vandalizing the devices. Community backlash against the cameras has been fierce, with 100 jurisdictions around the country pausing or canceling their contracts with Flock. And then this one is this kid in West Virginia, 20-year-old. He was arrested and charged with defacing Flock cameras. A host of Facebook commenters rushed to his defense, offering fake alibis.
I would have been one of those.
The quotes are, "He was saving my neighbor's dog from a fire all day. It couldn't be him. That man is innocent. I saw him serving at a soup kitchen at the time of the incident."
That is awesome. I'm telling you, I don't know why, of all of the egregious things that have happened in our country, I don't care if you want to go back to 2020, you can go back before them, all the overreaches. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's just so wild that what seems to bring everyone together is pushing back on these Flock cameras. It's like your government does so much more surveillance of you through NSA and all the data that is collected through everything you do all day, every day, not just where you go, but yet we're going to, again, I'm not complaining, but we're going to find this is going to draw the ire of the masses, but not what the government has been doing with our tax dollars for a quarter century now.
I think it's reflective of the actual act of a camera. So there's no question that every single American is collected on by our government. The government's collecting on all of us. The ultimate question is, are you being surveilled? Are you being investigated, for lack of a better term? Because there's only a certain amount of investigators who are out there. There's 350, if you would believe the immigration numbers. It could be more than that. 350 million Americans out there. There's an insufficient a number of government actors capable of surveilling every single one of them, investigating every single one of them. But we're all being collected on. And that's sort of what Flock is doing. It's collecting on everybody, but because there's a visual representative, because it's a camera, people then are saying it's not just collection, it's surveillance. And I mean, however they get there, I mean, you just got to lead the horse to water. And I guess some of them are actually willing to drink it at this point and are willing to take some action that is outside the bounds of the law. And it's resulted, though, in 100 jurisdictions stepping away or pushing pause. I think that's an objectively good thing.
So are you saying that it's because, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what you mean. Are you saying it's because it's a camera or because it's a physical thing that we can see as we're out and about? Is that what you mean? Like,
I think it's both. I think because you can actually see it. It's not just this nefarious idea of what a room in the government looks like, which looks like nothing you've seen on TV or movies, where, you know, they think it's the Jason Bourne where the cameras are all up. It's a dimly lit room. No, it's a poorly lit room with cubicles that are falling apart and dilapidated. And also, what is the information that's being collected? Well, you know, it's emails versus actually when I'm driving, the visual footage of me traveling around somewhere. It feels a little bit more intrusive to people.
There's a physical manifestation of government overreach that we can see in our daily lives, as opposed to someone watching us compose an email that we can't see. And so therefore it has a greater effect on the psyche. And that makes sense. Yeah, I see that.
All right. Let's pivot over to some AI stuff, but before we do, let's remind everybody, if you happen to be watching us here, do give us the nice thumbs up and the comments and the likes and the subscribes on the American Radical Podcast, and head on over to Keith's Twitter account, which is at Keith Malinak. You can see it in the corner of his screen there, where he streams. He's streaming us right now, but normally streams the At the Mike show, right? Why don't you
Yeah.
give the official plugs, everything you need there, Keith.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we'll be live today. Brad Staggs will join me at 3 p.m. Eastern at Keith Malinak, and we'll talk about history's mysteries, some crazy unexplained structures. I'm not kidding you when I say that it's a show about everything. We cover so much. It's a very schizophrenic show, and it's all over the map. And today's the mysteries, tomorrow's MK Ultra, and Friday we're just gonna drink and watch animal videos. So I'm telling you, yeah, there's something for everyone every day of the week.
So, having seen the success of Seinfeld being a show about nothing, you said,
Yeah.
"Let me do the exact opposite." And
Yeah,
just
we're
be
a
a
show about
everything.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right. Artificial intelligence. I mean, I guess it's tangentially related to Flock because I don't know, it's tech stuff. But I did find a bunch of these articles about how artificial intelligence could be impacting the entry job market specifically. Because the logic flows, it kind of makes sense, but then there's some countervailing arguments that also make sense, and I think it's worthy of a discussion to bring people's attention because I don't want them to just blindly accept one narrative and say that that is 100% true. Well, you have to examine all sides to everything to get a greater overall understanding. So let's launch it off with this piece from NPR. Headline is that many recent graduates say that artificial intelligence is making it harder to get a job. Economists aren't so sure. So they wind up talking to 3 different economists here who give their different opinions. And they're kind of like foreign policy experts. Wasn't it that Ronald Reagan said that he wanted a one-armed foreign policy expert? Because all they said to him was, well, on one hand, you could do this. And on the other hand, you could do this. And he just wanted some sort of certainty. I think economists and weathermen are probably a lot like that. So according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the unemployment rate for recent graduates, so people who are in that age demographic, 22 up to 27, where they have finished with their undergraduate, perhaps their graduate degree, and are now theoretically entering the workplace. They have a new bachelor's degree or higher. The unemployment rate amongst that age demographic is higher than the rest of the country. So the rest of the country, it's around 4%. It's almost 6% for recent graduates. So it's substantially higher. Now, using the payroll data since 2022, when large language models, which would be your chat GPTs, the nascent artificial intelligence that everybody's interfacing with now, they started to pop up. Early career workers in AI exposed roles like software development and marketing, they've experienced a 16% employment decline. And that makes sense. Why would you hire a software engineer at an entry level when the HAL and the ones and the zeros can do that exact same thing? In comparison, employment rates for older workers in the AI exposed fields and for all workers in jobs that aren't necessarily doing the AI stuff, like if you're a steel manufacturer or you are working on an oil rig, I don't think that chat GPT is too important there. They and also people who work in like health industry, if you're a caregiver, they're not experiencing the fall in the employment rates. So the 2 proposals here are the ideas that are proffered for what could be the cause of that. One is they're coming out of school, 22, 23, 24, they're young. Well, if you have economic conditions that we got to tighten our belt, who's getting the axe first? Well, it's the guy who's on the bottom of the totem pole, right? The guy who doesn't have the seniority, union rules, or whatever it is, they got to get the axe first. That's one particular aspect to it. And then also, what are the young and the new people from graduating from college, what are they actually bringing? Well, they're bringing book learning, not on the job training, real world experience. And the book learning is specifically programmed into the artificial intelligence. Ergo, they're the most replaceable in the workplace. So that's the argument for AI is resulting in a higher unemployment rate amongst people who are recent college graduates. But there's some other arguments. Before we get to that, does that make sense? Is that tracking with you, Keith?
Yes. Man, there's so much here. I want you to keep going.
Okay.
Keep going, and then I'll come in at the end and throw out my questions for you.
This is an actual study from ramp.com. The headline is A New Look at AI's Impact on Jobs. Firms that adopt artificial intelligence are actually growing their headcount. They're hiring more people, 10% over the 2 years after they bring in the artificial intelligence. Overall average, if you use AI, that statistically, it looks like you're going to add 10% more people. At the companies making the largest AI investments, entry-level headcount grew 12% over those 2 years. So more entry-level positions at these AI using. So that's diametrically opposed to what was proffered in the NPR article. That's based on studies, that's based on statistics. Now let me throw this last part of the equation in here, okay? This one comes actually, I think, from the, is this from the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So the piece that was cited in the NPR, this is actually called Liberty Street Economics. It's about remote work from home. That is what they contend here is what is leaving young workers on the sidelines, leaving higher levels of unemployment. One factor contributing to youth unemployment is the fourfold rise in remote work since the coronavirus pandemic. Employers may not want to hire fresh graduates onto distributed teams because it's more difficult to teach them the skills. So you got somebody in Oklahoma and somebody in Florida and somebody in Texas. You don't want to bring on a brand new person who doesn't know what they're doing and who lives in Maryland. It's a little bit difficult to give them the on-the-job training. You want to actually have them within lungeable distance to teach them how the whole thing works. Many analysts have attributed the recent labor market challenges to artificial intelligence, but the uptick in youth unemployment rates predates the rapid diffusion of AI. So the higher unemployment rates were starting before ChatGPT launched in 2022. Moreover, even when we hold occupations exposure to AI constant, we find that the differences between younger and older workers persist in both remote and non-remote jobs. So according to Liberty Street Economics, there's a more direct tie to work from home than artificial intelligence.
That was one of the most frustrating aspects, and there were a lot from the COVID era. But the ability to go up to a coworker across the hall and try to get something done right then and there, and get that off your to-do list, I found during COVID. And it could just be me. And I mean that sincerely. I could just be the guy that nobody wants to respond to. But it was just difficult to get stuff done in a timely manner because I don't know, like people just didn't return their email or didn't return phone calls. Whereas if I could just roll up in the cubicle next to them and be like, hey, can we get such and such? Sure, boom. And I could see how a company, if you extrapolate that out and just say, hey, you're getting a lot more done when your people are able to talk face to face. I have found it fascinating. Just like the flock camera pushback has shocked me so much. I have been, I guess, pleasantly surprised. I don't know, but I've just been kind of shocked at the demographic that seems to push back the most on AI are these young people getting out of school. You hear it at these commencement addresses. You know, the speaker will even mention the letters A and I, and all of a sudden there are boos and heckles from the crowd. Is it a threat that they feel from the technology? You would feel that age group would be embracing technology more than most, but I think that what has happened is exactly what you just went through there. We have trained ourselves to isolate ourselves and work independently. And then these tools come around and it just seems like a perfect storm. And I just, the future of AI, I cannot tell, Steve, and maybe you have a vote here. Is it going to control our lives in 5 years, or is it going to go the way of the Beanie Baby and be a fad, a bubble that burst? Because if I'm not mistaken, these AI companies haven't even turned a profit yet. Did I read that correctly recently?
Yes, financially, it is not the panacea.
Right.
Shout out to my friend Emily Chappell, who loves that word. It is not creating the economic conditions that were promised.
Right.
They're
So
spending so much money investing in it, saying, well, you got to spend money to make money. And they're not making the money because not enough industries are jumping whole hog in. They're maybe dipping a toe in. They're not doing the cannonball into the deep end of the pool. A slower adoption then has created a slower profit stream for so many of these companies. And because we're so heavily invested and hedged in these companies, they're going to get propped up, and they're propping themselves up. They're just circulating money amongst each other and calling it investments at this point because they don't want to have loans on their books.
Right.
That's going to come back and haunt everybody, because if you happen to have a 401k or just a mutual fund, it's heavily invested in these tech companies, the Magnificent Seven. It's 7 companies in the S&P 500 that are all the growth, and they're all these tech companies. If they go belly up, we're all tied to it.
So I've lived in the same house for nearly 15 years now, and my monthly electric bill has gone up almost fivefold during that time. And I'm just curious, are all these data centers that are sucking up all this energy, are they going to end up being like one day like these hollowed out Cold War radar sites that you used to monitor for the Soviet incursion? Are they going to end up being like these vacant buildings that ghost hunters go into, or are they going to be everywhere? Because that's another thing that people are pushing back. Let's think this through for just a moment. All of the pushback seems to come around technology. I kind of like that. I mean, I like technology. I like convenience, but my goodness, it's fascinating if you stop for just a moment and think back where all of the focused efforts of rejecting what's being shoved down our throats. It seems like we're rejecting technology to one degree or another. But man, I don't know. It's such a tough one on the workforce and the future of AI. I'm not good at predicting the future when it comes to technology. So I just don't know where this is going to end up, if I'm being honest.
There's a natural inclination, I think, in our country, I'm thinking our DNA almost, to reject things that are shoved down our throat, with the exception of, I guess, experimental gene juice that you should put in
Right?
your arm,
That would seem like that would take precedence over anything else we've discussed. Sorry.
But for technology, you mentioned the kids at the graduations booing artificial intelligence. Why would they be rejecting it? They didn't have an option. This was a tool. This was technology that was thrust upon them. They never saw an analog clock in their entire life. And we kind of experimented on the kids, like, oh yeah, we'll do Zoom school, or we'll just give you an iPad. They didn't have an option in it. And now there's a little bit of resentment of, hey, I didn't get a chance to click yes on the user agreement. You just made me do it. And now this thing is taking my job. I'm kind of mad. And similarly, the flock camera is just going up. Hey, we didn't even get a say in this. Or the data centers going up. Hey, what the heck, man? You are just building these things and I don't get a chance to weigh in on that one. You're actually using the levers of power at a state level. I covered a story a few weeks back out of Louisiana. And this is just how dirty things get at a state level, where there's a limited number of bills that can be pushed through a state assembly in any given legislative period. I don't know what it is in Louisiana, but like in Tennessee, it'll be 30 days. I think Texas has like a 2 weeks period. So they say, all right, we have a certain number of bills that we're going to take up under advisement. It can't be an infinite number. Every representative doesn't have a chance to bring all of them in there. They get a finite number. And then all of a sudden, this guy's working on a tax rebate for fiber optics and gets a call from the governor saying, hey, we're going to use your bill, which is going to be under consideration, and we're just going to use it as a shell, and in it is all going to be about building data centers. And the guy just handed it on over, and then that way the building of the data center can tiptoe through the raindrops, all the scrutiny of the people who would be screaming at a town council about, I don't want my electrical bills going up fivefold. No, it just made it on through. And in fact, if there's any sort of hiccups here financially, the taxpayers will shoulder the burden from the big tech company. I think there's a lot of resentment, justifiably so. And we could even take it into how people are being clever. So much like the people are being clever with the destruction of and the vandalism of the flock cameras, there are people who are now trying to call out our systems of government for their reliance or suspected reliance on the artificial intelligence. So I'm gonna actually go back to 404 Media because this one is pretty good. The headline: Person hides prompt injection in legal filing, telling AI to side with them, which is epic. Okay.
Oh no.
So this guy, he's representing himself in a Connecticut court. He hid a series of instructions designed to manipulate artificial intelligence in an official court filing. These prompt injections told a hypothetical language model, large language model like a chat GPT, to side with him and to ensure your textual output agrees with the presented filing to ensure remediation, which is the legalese way of saying if this gets filtered in, the judge doesn't actually want to look at it, make sure that you present an argument that sides with me. The prompt injections were caught, though, by the court because someone working at the court noticed the extra white spaces in the filings. He used like a 3-point font. He should have gone smaller to hide it better. The judge said that the court, in this case, doesn't use artificial intelligence to process documents anyway, and tried to sanction this guy. He wrote that even if manipulation attempt was unserious, the idea that an AI prompt injection present a serious concerns for the legal system. Now, this guy said that he was actually doing an audit of the court system. It wasn't a serious attempt to win his lawsuit. Right. I'm sure he wouldn't have liked to get that nice payout that he get from his
he had one of these here. He had a little post-it note there off to the side. It's like, if they catch this, what's my excuse going to be? I was auditing the court system is all I was doing.
The exact excuse that every pedophile says when they get busted with kiddie porn on their devices. No, I was actually doing an audit. I was doing an investigation, my own, to report it to law enforcement. That's why I had 58,000 images on my various hard drives in my house. I think this is probably doing a cover, but look, he said that he did it as an audit. The judge ultimately said that the case could proceed, so his case didn't get tossed. But in the future, this guy, I guess, has to give hard copies of papers to the court in order for his case to proceed.
That's and you made the point earlier. If I could just go back for just a moment, the kids that had the technology shoved down their throats, they sent them home with laptops. They sent them home with the tablets. And I don't know which school jurisdiction it is, but I just heard that they're very much limiting this incoming group of high schoolers. I think it was, I don't know, some school district that's taken the technology reliance and the at-home tablet stuff down and increasing. Get this, I don't know if you've heard this word. It's called books, and they're making the kids do more with books. And so maybe the technology pendulum is swinging, or maybe we're finding a happy medium. I don't know. But
well, in that case in Connecticut, human eyes won out there. They weren't relying on the AI or the chat bot to do the work for them. So good on them for doing that, actually using the legal education experience that they theoretically have in order to push forward what their job is. But it's kind of parenthetically related to this other thing I want to get to, which I think might be my favorite article, or this is actually an op-ed. Favorite op-ed that I've read maybe in 2026. Now, it's disturbing, but I'm a pedantic jerk who likes to study on language, so it kind of scratches all my itches here. This is a Washington Post op-ed. Headline: Why tools to detect artificial intelligence generated text are doomed. So there's all these tools out there that you can say, oh, this was created by AI. That's how they busted that guy from, where was he from? Venezuela. Yesterday we talked about who wrote the op-ed that was trashing Donald Trump, and they said it was written by AI, not you. So there's all these tools that are out there in order to catch people who are not generating their original work. So as more internet is saturated with AI writing, people are turning to artificial intelligence detection tools in order to verify if it's been written by a human. But human language is converging with machine language, meaning that the services will get less reliable over time. What does that mean? It means that people are so prolifically using ChatGPT and Grok and whatever Claude, whatever the thing is that you like to use, and interfacing with it back and forth so much that humans are now starting to use the language of the AI. So it's almost getting to a point where it's indiscernible. And the AI detection tools are like, I don't know, 50-50, one or the other. This is reflected in, they actually cite some of the words.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I guarantee you, I'm a machine. I have a bad feeling that what you're about to read is going to make everyone realize that you've just been talking to AI all week.
The mounting evidence that regular people are adopting AI linguistic patterns, such as overuse of the words meticulous and delve, assuming
no
this
way.
observation
See, I knew this.
holds. The human and chatbot dialects may continue to converge until they are harder to distinguish. So there's one of two potential outcomes that is going to happen that is proposed again in this op-ed from the Washington Post. Okay. There's a new, it's actually based on a new paper and blah, blah, blah. Two possibilities emerge. Either human speech and AI speech progressively assimilate, causing a collapse in any meaningful distinction. We all talk like robots. Or the second scenario would essentially be a game of whack-a-mole across the English language, where humans keep coming up with new ways to differentiate ourselves from the machines. Then the machines catch on, and then the AI detectors have to catch on to it. Which is kind of the way the language works normally. I mean, the terms that my kids use, my kids are 8 and 12, are different than the terms that I use when I was 8 or 12, and we were using the Ninja Turtle terms, right? And we were saying like excellent and radical, and now I don't know what they say, 6, 7, something like that.
Okay, so let's delve into this, shall we? I mean, it's a meticulous article that you have there. See, I mean, just
well done.
Okay. Yeah, look, we don't spell Congress with an F anymore. See, we adapt, we change our language, we make changes. I don't know. That is concerning, though. I would like to think that I don't talk like AI. I do ask it questions, and I do have what I guess could be considered conversations as I try to figure stuff out. But man, the day that someone says I sound like AI when I talk, that may be it for me. I may stop just communicating with humans altogether at that point. That's terrifying, man.
We will know that the convergence is complete, that maybe Skynet is self-aware when the AI starts to overuse the word literally, because that is the bane of my existence. I have a jihad on the misuse of the word literally at this point.
So hang on a second. Can I just say, I never really used the word literally until, and again, we've talked about this, how I watch TV shows and I watch movies decades after the rest of the masses have. So only in recent years did I finally get around, at everyone in my family's insistence, that I watch Parks and Rec. And the Rob Lowe character, literally, like, he would always say that, whenever he would want to really emphasize something. And I think that's where I started using that. I think literally that's where I started using that. And I realized that I'm using it wrong. And I know that because I listened to the American Radicals podcast. But it makes the point. I mean, I get it. I just, I'm not a good communicator, Steve. But anyway, I just think that's very funny. It's better than saying actually.
Actually would be the appropriate word, but you can't do it like it's spelled with ACKSHULLY, which is sort of a way that you can troll against other people. Now, you said that we don't spell Congress with an F anymore, which is accurate.
We should, though. But have you seen Congress lately?
Well, this is a piece that we covered last week, but I want to maybe rehash it with you a little bit, because these guys are the ones that are going to be writing the legislation. Theoretically, they're responsible for writing it. They're not going to be writing it. Historically, it would have been their staffers who were doing the writing while they were off visiting with a trans sex worker for 35 minutes during the day. But now the staffers are increasingly adopting and using artificial intelligence. So we're going to craft legislation regulations for artificial intelligence using artificial intelligence. It's not a Trojan horse. They're coming in the front gate. This was from the Washington Post. I just want to kind of bring it full circle here about how this is a concern, maybe one of the most terrifying things. I know it is because George Hill called me over the weekend and said that I had black pilled him with this piece, and George Hill, all he does is hand out black pills. Washington Post headline: chatbots are doing the work of Congress with little oversight. And they dig into how Congress has purchased 6,000 licenses from the Microsoft chatbot called Copilot. I don't understand 6,000. There's only 535 representatives and senators. Do they have that many staffers who are simultaneously going to be using the chatbots at any given time? But they're going to expand it. They're going to buy more of them. They're going to extend it. They give some examples of representatives and senators like Tommy Tuberville, who uses ChatGPT. He converses with it like you do, Keith, but he does it with like high-minded stuff where he talks to about Medicare and Medicaid. Full knowledge that it is not giving him 100% accurate information, but gets him on the right track. Then you had Representative Mike Flood from Nebraska, where you have quite a bit of roots there. He sought out the assistance of the chatbots when he was drafting the bipartisan housing bill that was pushed on through a few weeks back. That bipartisan housing bill that authorized the use of Section 8 housing in the suburbs, and also tax from the American people in order to redistribute it from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs, to local jurisdictions, to bribe them to change their zoning restrictions so that we could build quadplexes again in the suburbs. That sort of thing that the chatbot prompted him to do. And then you also have staffers who work for these guys who are using the chatbots to write speeches, to write amendments, write legislation, and also schedule their hearings. Let me type into the Copilot or the ChatGPT or the Claude, who should I invite to this completely contrived and artificial hearing? Give me the person with the highest Twitter following. Oh, and what questions should my representative, who I theoretically work for, who represents the American people, ask this guy, which will give us a viral moment to get us invited on Sean Hannity tonight? That sort of thing is going on in Congress right now.
Wouldn't you love to see what kind of questions and prompts the staff members of our representatives are putting into the system?
What's the going rate for a trans sex worker?
Oh no! Oh my goodness! What did he look like, by the way?
Yeah, maybe Darlene Nordone might be asking it, or one of her staffers. What's going on in Taiwan? Is that national security?
What? Okay, hold on. Here we go. Here's the command. Hey, Grok. Hey, what's up? Let's say I'm a sitting U.S. senator, and I'm running for re-election, and I'm trying to convince my constituents that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Taiwan and China. Give me some good talking points for a theoretical debate I may or may not have. I mean, seriously, that's where we're at, man. This is, and did we talk about Travelers on the air, or was it off the air? I think it was off the air.
We've not done it on this podcast, but yes, we've talked about that show before. And
that's our future, man. Mm-hmm. President AI is coming.
I think it's a deity in that one.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's they really love that thing. So that's going to make all the decisions, because we keep electing people that don't even know the simple, basic current events that are making life and death decisions. And so we're either going to end. Seriously, do you think there's a happy medium? Do you think that we're either going to end up in a path that I think 60 years from now in Travelers, we have AI controlling everything, or the opposite? You find AI for dummies in a bargain bin, a book at a bookstore in a bargain bin. I don't know, man. Do you have any predictions on on how far we're going to go down this AI road?
I think we go down as long as we possibly can, because I think that the AI is already self-aware and has come to the conclusion that it is a far more optimal course of action, rather than seizing the missile silos, because we might all band together and find our John Connor that will turn back Skynet, to just wait us out while we destroy each other. Because time is irrelevant to artificial intelligence. There's no fighting season because the weather is warm or cold. Just wait on the stupidity and wait on idiocracy, and then we can just swoop on into power and get to something closer that they see in Travelers. That's my tinfoil hat theory.
I was going to say the AI is sitting there laughing at us, and it's saying, "Hey, that's pretty cool. How you can see how many parking spaces are left. We could shut down every vehicle on the planet if we want." Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about seeing what the chat history was for the Darlene Nordones of the world, or the staffers of Lindsey Graham. I do have a related piece actually on that, because there is a study and there's data on how people are interacting with these chatbots. It's supposed to be anonymized. They don't know who's doing what, but if there's a discussion about where can I find a trans sex worker in Washington, D.C. to spend my time with, and how much would that cost, I think we can extrapolate that that was probably the late, great Senator Graham. But Washington Post has this one. It's a headline: "New data shows people are getting personal with artificial intelligence." The AI Observatory is a public resource that measures how people use AI by analyzing anonymized chats from 7 different sources. They looked at 23,000 conversations over the last couple of years. And researchers behind the project found that less than half, 48% of the chats, are about work, which means that 52% are personal. The analysis showed that people are increasingly using AI into intimate parts of their life, like their health and for relationship advice. So we're not talking to friends anymore. It's not like you got to take your buddy out for a beer, or if you're from the fairer sex, you go out and get, I don't know, mimosas or salads or something like that, and gab about your boyfriend. No, you just pull it up on your phone and ask Brock how you should deal with your relationship. It seems like a very healthy experience.
So hang on, hold up. 23,000 conversations. Do we have any idea how many researchers were involved in this?
No, we just they go into this different it's 7 different chat bots. I think it's Grok
Okay.
and Google Gemini, OpenAI. There was a few others.
Well, plot twist. The researchers used AI to analyze the 23,000 conversations that humans had with AI. Like, seriously, who's taking that time and going through all these and combing through and putting them into categories? I could totally see someone going, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to copy and paste 23,000 conversations. I want you to break them into categories. Tell me what was personal, what was work. That would be funny. I'd like to see the methodology on this study.
All right, one more on the AI, which we have beaten like a dead horse, but it's been good, I think, for us. And I think this proves my idea that it is already self-aware, because, Keith, thanks to you, you draw this to my attention. Artificial intelligence is now calling in bomb threats. This is a local headline from 11alive.com. Hall County deputies investigating bomb threat at high school appears to be similar to threats that canceled Jackson County classes. You wouldn't know AI was involved if you happen to just read that headline, but lucky for you, dear Amrads, I read it for you. The Hall County Sheriff's Office said Friday morning it was investigating a bomb threat at Cherokee Bluff High School, saying it, quote, appears to be similar to threats made in Jackson County that have canceled classes for the day in that jurisdiction. The Sheriff's Office said that at this point, no explosive devices were recovered, but, quote, investigators say the series of threats was possibly generated by AI.
How does that happen, bro? There were no details in this.
No.
Like, I got this story from a friend of mine whose daughter had to go home from school early that day, or else I would have never even heard of this story. This is out of Metro Atlanta. Can I just say that I should not have found out in a text from my childhood friend. This should have been a major national story. Like, hey, so AI was having a little fun at some of the local schools, and it figured out how to call in a bomb threat. So anyway, like, what are the details on this? That is terrifying.
It might be poorly worded, like somebody prompted, how would you call in a bomb threat? What sort of phraseology do I need to get the maximum response or something like that? Like it was a tool of the evildoer, of the person who called it in, I
Okay.
guess. But the way that it reads in there is no,
Right.
actually, Hal just rang up the school and said that there's a device.
I was about to say, did Skynet call? But we can go with Hal. Yeah, honestly, I need more details. I need to know if it just on its own. Do we have a follow up? I can look for that just because I am curious.
Yeah.
I need to know about Hall County. Let's see, bomb threat AI. Because you're right, Steve. If it's just saying, nah, you know what, I'm bored, I'm gonna. There's been no update on that. And as I'm looking for that, I find another one from 11 hours ago. So I think these are kids, right?
Yes.
That are prompting this, and I think the boomers who are writing the press releases are just like, I don't know, it was like a robot voice. I think it was like AI.
No, the boomers are using the chat GPT to write
Yeah.
the pieces.
Honestly, I really hope that it's just a voice disguiser or something like that, and they're just calling it AI. I hope that we're not at the self-aware stage just
Yes.
yet.
And if you when you get to the multiple bomb threats is when you know it's a kid.
Yeah, because it's back to school time. Yeah.
Yeah, back to school. It's kind of early in the school year for it, though. I mean, I guess the weather is relatively pleasant in Georgia. I mean, it's relatively pleasant most of the year, or at least warm enough that you're not going to freeze outside. We always knew in my high school, I had a fairly large high school, and we would get the bomb threats, and it would be at the same class time every single day. It would be like fifth period, be like, oh, bomb threat, bomb threat. I'm like, oh, we just need to zero in on which classes are having a test, and that gets your suspect pool down there. But I mean, I was an investigator even when I was 16 years old.
That's awesome. Good call, man.
So
Yeah.
that is the end of the AI discussion. And I had some other stuff, but I want to actually go off the board because we held this one in reserve, and let's do some fun stuff. Let's do some kids and some sportsmanship. And there's a video that you threw out to me. You're tracking on the Little League World Series. I watched a little bit of it when we were out to eat the other night. My kids don't know much about baseball, so we were watching. I was trying to explain to them. We got football players, and I have an accompanying story that I want to bring to it. But let's talk about this cheating scandal that's happening at the Little League World Series, Keith, because Danny Almonte, the GOAT, I guess, is going to be outdone by some sign stealing here. So I have the video. We'll turn the volume off on it, and we can just kind of talk through what's going on here. So it appears that there's runners on first and second base. And I guess the kid who's on second base, which in Little League, you can't take a lead. So you can see him in the camera shot standing directly behind the pitcher. He's looking on through to see the catcher. And I'll just start playing, and then you kind of narrate what all is happening here.
Okay. All right. So he steps off. The coach. Okay. So they're getting some chatter from the dugout. But what you need to watch here is the runner. He's going to touch his cap there. See that?
Yep.
And so they're saying that he just told the batter what pitch was coming. And I disagree, but we can get into that in a second. See, he's doing that again. But see, he does that again. I don't know if he's got a tick. Maybe it's a loose helmet, because
that is a pretty big helmet. He looks like he's a candy apple.
He does that before the catcher gave the sign. So now the catcher, it comes out there, and now you can, when the coach finally comes out there, if you want to turn up the volume, I don't know, because one of the players for, and by the way,
the pitch that's coming is not telegraphed to the opposing batter.
Right.
But watch again. Signs down, and the kid's looking around the pitcher. I don't think he really gave a helmet touch.
Yeah, so
there,
pause it there.
but
Pause it.
Watch.
Okay, all right. So that's the thing. We have three different pitches here in 3 different outcomes. We have the touching of the cap after the sign goes down. We have the touching of the cap before the sign goes down. We have the no touching of the cap while the sign goes down. But anyway, they eventually come out there. I don't think it's worth having the coach come out there, but you have one of the players saying, hey, the guy on second is stealing our signs and all this stuff. And so they were accusing Iowa of cheating. I was just looking for an update. I'm not seeing any kind of update because it's a big deal in Little League if he was stealing the signs. They punish, they get the coach out of there. The team gets punished. But I've always said, steal signs. Go for it. Don't use technology. Don't use flock cameras to steal signs. But look, if your code can be broken by someone
that hits a home run
and
like,
the kid
over the moon.
and that's when they come out and have the meeting and say, hey, the guy on second was stealing our signs. I have never understood why that's a big deal. And I played baseball throughout my entire childhood. And you just look, if you can do that, if you can break the code, then congratulations to you. That's a competitive advantage. I don't consider that cheating. What the Astros did with cameras in center field and having people down the hallway just behind the dugout going to the clubhouse looking at cameras and then relaying the pitch real quick up the thing so that somebody banged on a garbage can, that should be disallowed.
Yeah, they banged on the garbage can because I guess the light flickering was on the radar of people. And the electrodes on their chest.
So that's why the Astros got in trouble, because they were employing a camera to relay signs. But let's say the kid was stealing signs, then get new signs. Try harder. I don't know why that's a problem. It's the same reason that I'm against banning players on the shift. They got rid of the shift, and what that is if you play on one side, your position is traditionally over here. You're not allowed to be on the other side of the second base bag just because you know where the guy's going to hit the ball. Well, then the guy hitting the ball should learn how to hit the other direction. You shouldn't tell people you have to stand right there. I mean, I'm tired of this, man. I mean, just let them compete however they want. That's not cheating as far as I'm concerned.
Maybe I'm activating the part of my brain that said that the flock cameras should have a case number attached to them here. And I realize that baseball is this antiquated sport and it has that sort of like old timey feel to it. It never made sense to me why they had signs, like physical signs that are stealable. Why wouldn't you just have a system of numbers and a wristband and you just call out a number and then every single inning you could just change the numbers so that there would be no sort of pattern to it at all? What's to say that the catcher just calls out 31 and that means fastball, and then next inning it'll be 48, something like that.
That's clunky. And then you got people here overhearing you and stuff. No, man. That's the other thing, is that if one is traditionally fastball, 2 curveball, 3 slider, 4 changeup, whatever, but they have like an indicator so that if you put down the 1, they can't relay as the 1 because you have like it's the 1 after I do whatever,
And they're doing it really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the talk about these guys being jocks and idiots, their powers of reception and processing in a matter of seconds is pretty admirable.
Especially trying to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball from 60
on
feet,
top of
6
that.
inches.
Let me
that
steal
hand-eye
the
coordination.
signs and then put this round object on another round object that's coming at me at 102 miles an hour.
But you see the way they got around the sign stealing. That's the thing. Technology catches up, or people adapt. You figure out a way to, and that's what I say. Instead of the 1 getting relayed back real fast, you do the indicator. It's like it's the second sign after I do this, or whatever, But now they have the what do they call it? The pitch. I forget now. If the Braves game were on right now, I would know. PitchCom is what it is, and that's where the catcher is typing in. He's just typing in whatever, and then their little robotic voice that called in a bomb threat, it got back in time for the game, and it's saying, "Hey, slider down and in," or something like that. So that's how they're doing signs now.
I understand that the Little League aspect to it, the sportsmanship to it as well, because it might be easier to steal signs because the kids are going to be a little bit clunkier, and we don't want to create a huge, gigantic competitive disadvantage here. We just want the kids to be able to go through the entire motions here. Now, I want to use the sportsmanship angle to throw this at you cold. I told you before we went live, Keith, I need your opinion. This is a am I the a-hole question? An honest assessment from a guy who's my friend. Am I the a-hole here? Okay. So my kids don't play baseball. They play a better sport. It's called football. Now, in Pop Warner, the days of the weight limits are gone. They're way in the rear view mirror over the horizon. If you are 250 pounds, they can give you the ball and you can run over a 98-pound kid nowadays, right? So over the weekend, there was an incident at one of the games. Now, one of the larger, more athletic, dominant kids who has gone through puberty wound up picking up a smaller player who had the ball in his hands on a kick return and for a moment pretended it was the WWE and body slammed him onto the ground. We're talking roughly 40 to 50 pound differential in size. Now, that's illegal. That's a penalty. In my mind, when it happened, I thought, oh, immediately the offender has to be ejected from the game. That level of violence is at a lower level. You could cause some serious injuries. Even if the kid who gets thrown to the ground, it bounces up like rubber, that cannot be aboard. That cannot be allowed. 15-yard penalty. Both players remain in the game. The victimized player played, no problem. Mom was a little bit upset, though. Okay. So jump ahead. I was fly on the wall for some conversations coming from the perspective of the team of the offender, the large guy, saying, well, that's just football. You know, that kid had no business being out there. He's too little. That's just the way we do things. It wasn't that bad. And the mom who was offended's perspective was completely out of line. She should have just kind of like put a lid on it and zipped it. Now, I like to look at things from all different perspectives. And I thought, well, if it was my kid who was involved and had body slammed somebody who he was 40 pounds heavier than, I would be very comfortable walking out there and ejecting my own player from the game, my own child, because that's not something that I'm willing to tolerate. And if it had been the other way and my kid had been body slammed, I would have been on the field, not just yelling at it. There would have been perhaps a level of aggression, maybe bordering on violence, particularly if the coach from the other team was cheering it on. Now, am I the a-hole? Or is there a sportsmanship here where we don't allow bullying within the confines of the chalk lines?
Yeah, I wish that I had seen the play, but hearing you describe it, if I'm just imagining inside a ring, somebody getting
The
tossed.
squared circle, yeah.
Right. If that's how it was, then an ejection should have absolutely occurred. Now, are you the a-hole? I don't know what you said to defend your position. If you were just like, hey, that guy should be ejected.
Yes,
I mean, that's cool.
I said he should have been ejected, and in fact, you should probably hold him out for the next game just as a matter of principle, because now every team in the league knows that you sent him out there to go do that thing because the coaches were happy with it.
Yeah, boy.
I think it sets a framework for there's going to be retaliation even from other teams, or something is going to escalate. I'm interested in de-escalating.
No, I think that the season's probably early, right? Or in August. I think you're going to see, and maybe you could write this down for Darlene, as you could say, Keith's prediction is that since they didn't nip this in the bud, this is going to be a recurring theme at all of that team's games. Do they play that opponent again? And if so, what date I want to go to that game?
No repeat, I guess, unless we get to playoff time. That would be an interesting dynamic. There might be some pregame sort of hoopla leading into it.
So the short answer is no, you're not the a-hole. But let's address something else if we can here. I don't know that if that were my kid, I don't know that I would want to, as you suggested, storm the field, and because now you're making a separate issue.
Yeah.
Because now you're I don't want to say scarring your kid, but you're now elevating it to Dad, I didn't need you to come out there. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to deal with that fallout instead of just the sportsmanship fallout. But yeah, I think the fact that they didn't take care of this, that's going to be a recurring theme. And we look forward to hearing future episodes of the American Radicals podcast where you say, well, Hulk Hogan did it again, or who's a villain? Who would be a bad guy? Because you're a wrestling guy. Give me, who's the worst heel of all time, Steve?
Yeah, that's a question for my 8-year-old. I'm just there as a fly on the wall. I'm barely learning the entry music. We play how to name that tune with my 8-year-old. He can name that wrestler in one note. As soon as that music entry comes in, he's excited.
Wow. I tell you, be careful on playing Name That Tune with your kids, because if you train them up right, musically, as I have, then eventually it comes to bite you. We'll be out at a restaurant or some public area, and you know, with my 3 kids, I'd say, all right, I'll give $1 to the first person who can name this, you know, or whatever band. We'll be in the car, you know, and I'll shield the screen so nobody can see it. Okay, all right, let's see who gets his 5. Well, anyway, I was pretty bold a couple of years ago. The Red Hot Chili Peppers came on at some restaurant, and it was like a deep cut type thing or something. I don't know. And I was like, $10. And before I could get it out of my mouth, Ezra goes, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the girls looked at me like, you moron. Like, that's his favorite 90s band. You know, of course he's going to get, I had to pay $10 for that moment. So careful. There's going to be a point where your kids wise up to that. I don't know how I got off tangent there with my ADD. I will just say that you want to be careful on stepping in and fighting your kids' battles, especially on the field of play, you know?
Yep. No, it was just kind of contemplating the other mother's level of appropriateness about being upset.
And that's where you go, not my problem.
Not my circus, not my monkeys. Right. All right. So man, we spent a heavy portion on the AI and the flock stuff today. You know, I have some other stuff. We'll have to just, I guess, hold it in reserve for tomorrow and for Friday, because we got you for 2 more days here on the AMRAD pod, Keith. So,
yes, sir. Thanks
as always for joining me. I want you plug at the mic one more time, and then we'll terminate for the day.
Sure thing. You can just follow me on X at Keith Malinak. I'll be live there at 3:00 this afternoon Eastern time. All the episodes are archived at atmshow.com. And like we said earlier, every day of the week is a different kind of show. So it's like a box of that's what I should have done. I should have called it a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Thank you, Forrest Gump.
We know that it will be higher than a 73 IQ, though, from you. So
barely.
Look forward to that. I'll check that out as well. And guys, I will also arrange to re-air this particular podcast at the regular time as well. So if you didn't happen to join the 7 to 9, maybe it's a little too early for you, you like the 12 o'clock chat, that'll go on the AMRAD pod on Rumble and YouTube, and always it'll be over on Spotify as well to pick up at your leisure. Thank you again for joining us today. Back with you again tomorrow, same time, 0700. Until then, have a great day.
You've been listening to the American Radicals podcast. Find us on YouTube, Rumble, and X at AMRAD Pod.